Sagt the Gemara, Tana Rabbanin, Shtar Shikosuv Vo. We are right in the middle of the Amud on Ayin Beis Hamid Aleph. Tana Rabbanin. It says a Shtar Shikosuv Vo Ribis, any star that was written by Yidden, and it's written in it that there'll be a Ribis involved in this loan. There's going to be a knas for having done that. The inu goiva lo as a karen, but lo as a ribis. Divrei Rebbe Meir. There's not going to be. It's going to be a knas. The person will not be able. The malva will not be able to collect from that star. Not only the karen, not only the ribis, but even his capital he won't get back. That was Rebbe Meir. Chachamim omerim goiva es a karen. They aren't konas the person. Malva, and he can get his capital back. He just said he can't get the ribis. Ve'eno gove as a ribis.
The Malva loses all his money.
According to Rebbe Meir, it seems like that's the kanas for having made a loan the ribis. He loses his capital and obviously the ribis.
He deals with a lip.
B'mai k'mifligi. What's the machlokas between the chachamim? That's usually Rebbe Yehuda and Rebbe Meir. Rebbe Meir sovar. Kansinin heteira mishum isura. That what we see happening was that they canast the isur. He can't get the ribis back, but they canast the heter, his capital that was his originally. That's they canast the heter because he did an isur. He can't even get his capital back. The Rabbanan sabrei lo kansinin heteira mishum isur. The Rabbanan hold no. We're not konas the heteira. You can get his capital back. Just don't. He's not allowed to take the ribis. Tanan Hasam, we learned there, which Hasam is in a number of Gemaras, which speak about shtar mukdam, when a person writes a predated shtar. So it says Tanan Hasam. This is in this Masect. It's in Sanhedrin, in Shvius. It's in Rosh Hashanah, Baba Basra. So it says Tanan Hasam, shtari chov hamukdamin. If the person wrote a shtar chov, loan halva. That let's say the loan was taken out in Nisan, and they wrote the date in Tishrei. So psulin is puzzle. That shtar becomes puzzle, and the reason is because it allows the malva to be tayref from the kuchois. Because every shtar, even if it's not written in it, as is shibudei nechasim, are meshubah to the. It's a guaranteed loan that if the person even though it's not written, it's a tais sofer. So if this person, that enables the person, the malva, to collect from the lova, if the lova will have sold any properties from the date written on the shtar, after that date, the malva has the right to take that properties back to get his hold paid off. So, since that's a sheker, because that's not when the loan really was, the loan was in Nisan, not in Tishrei, so that's why it's asur, because it enables him to be tayref from the kuchos that bought from the loiva from Tishrei, when the loan was really just from Nisan. So that's why it's puzzle. The point is here, though, it's puzzle completely, and even if he'll be tayref from land which the lova sold after the date of the real loan, like after Nisan, he still won't be able to use the shtar because it's puzzle. And that's the point over here. It's any shtar chov, which is mukdomin, is puzzle completely. You can't even use it after the right time to be tayref from the kuchois.
That still can collect your principal.
Yeah. No. Now you could collect the principal if
you cannot use the shtar. The shtar is worthless.
If the loiva would give it to you, obviously you get your money. You can't be tayref from the kuchos. The shtar, that point, which is the shibud karka ice, the shtar will not help.
What's the kuchos?
The kuchos is purchaser, buyers. Like let's say the loiva will sell.
That's the collateral, but I'm talking about the principal.
Right, that's the collateral.
You can't get the collateral, but you can still get the
yes. Well, you can get your money back if he'll pay you. But if he doesn't have any money, so one of the ways of getting your money back is and he sold land after he took a loan from you. So why did he sell land? Now he has no money to pay you. So he had the obligation. He was supposed to pay you from that land, from any karka that he had at the time of the loan. That was meshubah to the loan that he took from you. So now he has a right. So the malva has a right to take that, and he sold it. the Lova sold that land. How is he going to get it? He takes it away from him. But if he takes it away, he's only allowed to take the land away that was sold after the date of the loan, because anything that was sold before had nothing to do with the loan. So by predating the shtar, that gives the Malva rights, which are not really his rights. It's because it's shtar sheker, it passes the whole shtar.
But if the owner, if the Lova has property that he has not sold,
He can go there.
then the star is
For sure. You can collect from
It's even without star.
Yeah.
A middle Berlin star is also can go.
from Bnei Chayrin.
Yeah.
So
It's only when there was the kuch.
the Gemara asks, why should it be puzzle? What about like at the time of Nisan? He should be able to collect from lands that the Lova sold after Nisan, which is when the loan really was. He should be able to collect from them. Why can't he be tired? Why can't he use the shtar? Why won't the shtar stay with strength to enable him to take out lands, collect his loan from lands that were sold after Nisan? So am I pursuing? Why should we puzzle? Nehid lo gavu mizman rishon. True, you shouldn't be able to collect from land that the Lova sold from the earlier predate from Tishrei, but let him collect at least from land that the Lova sold after Nisan when the loan really was given. So a nigvu mizman sheni. So why is the shtar completely puzzled? Omer of Shimon ben Lakish, he wants to be masbir that it's totally on the machlokas that we saw above with Rebbe Meir and the Chachamim. Rebbe Meir said that by any shtar, right? Rebbe Meir said that any shtar that is written with Ribis in it, so we're consigning the malva, he can't even get his capital back. So he wants to be toilet this machlokas with the shtar muktam, that'll be the reason why it's completely puzzled. Since it's also to collect from lekuchos from the earlier date, which is the predate, so it's like a kanas that the person, the malva, can't even collect his money back from the date of the actual loan and onward. So that would be Ritzad. That we puzzle a shtar mukdam would be the sheet of Rebbe Meir. So Rebbe Shimon ben Lakish, Omar Rebbe Shimon ben Lakish, b'machloikis shnuya. Rebbe Meir, this sheet that the shtar will become puzzle will be the sheet of Rebbe Meir. Rebbe Yochanan, however, has a different hezbir to why the shtar, which is mukdam, is puzzle. Rebbe Yochanan Omar afilu tema rabbanim. No, the rabbanim said that a person that gave a loan with ribis can get his capital back, but just not the ribis, because the rabbanim held that we don't konas the heter or to the iser. So then why would, since it's mutter from the point of the loan on, from Nisan on, the malva should be able to be Torah from the kuchos that the land that the Lova sold after Nisan, according to the Rabbanan, since they don't give a kanas for heter or to the iser. So then how can we be masbir the Rabbanan over here that a shtar mukdam is completely possible even for after the right date? The filtema Rabbanan gezeira shema yigba mizman rishon. We can't allow it to be around, because the person, if he has it, he might collect from lands that were sold from the earlier date. So that's the Rabbanan. It's a gezeira de Rabbanan. That's why we puzzle the shtar, which is mukdam. So the Gemara, here's an interesting case. Hahu gavra. Mashkein le pardesa. He took a loan from a malva and he gave as collateral his pardes. Pardes is a orchard, right? Citrus fruits, whatever. So the chavre, and that would be for the Eser Shonim. They would stay by him for 10 years, and he would then, and that would be collateral for him. And if he wouldn't pay it back, the malva would be able to keep it. So ochlo tolsa shnei, that the malva ate for 3 years, which is the years of chazaka. Chazaka means that if a person will be on a land for 3 years, and the owner of the land during those 3 years did not protest, why are you on my land? Get off my land. Then if that person, squatter, will then claim in Beis that he bought it from the owner, he will be believed, even without a shtar. He will be also entitled to say he lost the shtar, because a person, it's known has the right to claim that after 3 years he didn't hold on to the shtar. It's a long time. He has the right to claim that he lost it, and he also has that fact that the owner didn't protest within those 3 years. He would be able to keep the land based on chazaka. So he stayed there those years. The Malva was there 3 years. So Amalei, mizvonis lo nile mutar. If you will sell me this land right now, true, I gave you a loan. The Malva is talking to the Lova. The Malva is on the land. True, the Malva gave him a loan, and the Lova still owes him that money. But the Malva says, if you will sell me this land, I'll give you money for this land, more money, and the land will be mine. So then everything will be good. I'll have your land, and you'll still have to pay me back the loan. You can even use that money, whatever money you want. You can pay me back. You'll still have to pay me the loan, but I will pay you for this land. Then everything will be good. But if you don't sell me this land, I'm going to take the land from you by force. I'm going to force it out of you. If you don't sell me this land, kivishna law l'shtar mishkanta. I'll take the shtar mishkanta, the shtar that says that I've given you a loan and you would give me this land for 10 years as collateral for that loan. I'll hide the shtar as though it never existed, and I will claim va'amina l'kucha hi biyodin. I'll claim that I bought it for you 3 years ago and I lost the shtar. And you won't be able to do anything about it. I'll have the land anyway, so you might as well sell it to me and get money for it, because I won't have to pay you the money either, because...
But then the Malva saves having to pay back the loan. I mean, the Lova saves having to pay back the loan.
Based on that money of the loan.
You want to buy the karka with the money from the loan?
I don't think so. I think he's buying it with new money.
With new money?
I think the point is here, the reason we're dealing with a mashka.
Because they're making a shantaj.
He's making a swindle.
Yeah.
The reason why they chose a person that's it's a mashkanta by him is because a loan is because normally when a person is on a land for 3 years, he bought it. It's a chazaka. But here's another case, a way that a person could be sitting on land without the owner complain because it was a collateral. But it's not that he used the money of the loan to pay for the land. He was going to pay him for the land. Okay, so, that I bought it. So Ozil, so what did the owner of the land was smart. So he went and Ozil come. He went and he brought Adim and he wrote a shtar that he was giving a matana present to his younger son. So now at this point, this field is not owned by him, it's owned by his son. He took it out of his name, put it into the name of his son. And then Bahadur Zavna Nile, and then he went and sold it and got money for it to the Malva. So he sold a field that wasn't his. Later the son will come up with the shtar and verify that it wasn't that it was his, and that there was no right for the father to have sold it in the first place. So that's what the Gemara says. Zvini vade lo hevi zvini. There won't be any question in Beis Din when they see the shtar from this son that it was owned by somebody else and that the father had no right to sell it. So it won't be a zvini. But with the shaila of the Gemara here is now we have a shtar that says that the Malva put money in the hands of a lova, and a shtar. So too, it won't be a shtar which verifies a sale. The sale will be like batal, but the shtar verifies that the Malva put money in the hands of the lova. And every shtar that says that money was put over to the hands of the other person is be'achrayus, nechasim, because it's tali sofer, even if it wasn't written. It's keilu it was written that if you don't pay me that money back, I can be talirif from the lekuchos that you sold your land to after the date on this shtar. The shaila is, even though it might not be a good shtar for mecher, will the malva be able, if that father, the loiva, will go and sell land after the date on that shtar, will that malva be able to be torah from those lekuchos? So that's the shaila.
The way he can be torah is if the loiva doesn't pay back the loan. All the loiva is going to do is pay back the loan. And
if he pays back the loan, no. We're learning at this moment. We're learning that the Malva gave him money for the loan and money for the land. So that he has to pay back. If he would give back the money of the karka, so true.
No, he gave back the money of the loan.
So I don't know how much the money of the loan was worth.
The Malva can't collect.
Well, he can still,
He can't
he
seize the property.
the money of the loan was not the money that he used. He gave him other money also for the karka.
Right, the Malva loaned him $1,000.
Right.
Then the Malva paid him another
$50,000
for the land.
Okay.
Right? Now, the Malva wants to make a claim against the Lova.
Okay.
Lova says, you can't make a claim against me, I'm gonna give you $1,000 back. I profited 500. I'm happy.
No, because
No, the
it's a
question
loan.
is now- the question is now-
It's a
the
milva
question is
by
now,
But
the
he made the
Malva,
$500.
the Malva paid, the second time he paid $500 for the karka.
Correct.
But the selling was not the correct selling because it was not the karka from the father, it was already from the son. So the loiver must give him back the money that he pays him for the
karka, the $500.
Yes,
Yes,
the $500.
that becomes the
So
milva.
this $500, the second one, not from the beginning, no, from the selling from the fact. This second one is a milva b'shtar. He owns him $500, yes, and there is a shtar also because there is a shtar that he sold him a karka, and the karka was not his. This is the more, yes.
Yeah.
This is the shtar.
So
Dann
anyway,
haben wir Zuzike Malve b'shtar this money that is now on his back. He has to give back the money from the selling, yes? Is this money that the Malv is now owning to pay back for the loiver? Is this the middle of Bishtar or middle? This is the only question. Not from the first. The first loan is the Gemara not speaking.
Right.
The Gemara is only telling the story that there was a loan and he gave it a mashkin and the Malv tried to make a business with him,
right.
and the lawyer didn't want to make the business. They made such a
Right.
false arrangement.
That's
but
the
the
shayla
Gemara
is-
is only asking now on the second money.
So that's the shani. So that now that becomes the money that was put by him for the karka becomes a loan. So that's the shayla.
owns it back.
That's the shayla. Will it become a loan with a shtar? The malva had given money for the karka, a second money,
500.
right? So that 500 becomes a milva by the loiva, because he didn't give him anything. He didn't give him the karka. Karka was taken back away. It was the son's. So the money was still by the loiva. Therefore, that's considered a malva in the hand of the lova, a milva. So therefore the shaila is this going to be considered a milva b'shtar or milva b'al peh? The shtar would be the shtar of the mecher. Good, it's not going to work for the mecher, but maybe the shtar will help for the shibud nechasim in terms of the milva, to enable the malva to be tired from the kuchos that the loiva would sell after the date of the shtar. That's the shayla. The Gemara is going to explain
Why
it.
is the Gemara bringing such a complicated story? You can tell the Gemara simply that somebody sold the karka to somebody else, and after the selling, they see it's not his karka, it's his karka from his son. So he owns the money back.
But the
Why is
property wasn't his to sell.
Huh?
The property wasn't his to sell. It was a
Yeah, but the Gemara can say that a normal story. Somebody, you have a karka, and I come to him and I say, I have a karka there in Ramat Eshkol. I'm selling it to you. Okay, I'm selling it. He's paying back money, and then it's not my karka, it's yours. So I own him back the money. So why is the Gemara now asking because it's complicated? The achais, maybe is it because there is a achais from the first loan? Why is the Gemara making such a complicated? Why should it be a milva b'shtar?
It's good.
Because
Because it verifies that the malva put money by him.
Yes, the shtar is from the selling.
Right. So the selling was nothing, but it verifies that money was put by the mill, by the load. But that's all. So therefore, since it does show that, maybe and it did turn into a milva because money is by that's what it did. It turned it into a milva. We proved that money is by the lova. So therefore, since is that going to be the shtar for the milva? So is it going to be Odilma Kamilva Alpeh? Maybe it was only a shtar for the mecher, and therefore can't be used as a shtar for the milva, and the malva won't be able to be tired from the kuchos. So Odilma Kamilva Alpeh Damo, and a milva Alpeh you can't be tired from the kuchos, only from Bnei Chayr. The Enu Goiva Menechas Mishubadim. Omar Abaye. V'la hainu to Rebbe Asi. We can. This is what Rebbe Asi was talking about. The Omar Rebbe Asi. Moide b'shtar shekosvu einu tzarich l'kaimo. Anyone who's moide, this is referring to the case of where the shtar halva, that was that if usually when you want to be goiva from it, so Basin has to be verified the signatures, has to verify the signatures of the edim in order to actually use the shtar. But if the loiva will admit that this shtar was written, then they won't have to verify the signatures. Because he's moed b'shtar shekosu eno tzarich l'kaimo, and you can use the shtar and be torah from the kuchos. It will have its full toikif. The goyim menechos mishubadim. So and here they want to say that this loiva was moed, this shtar was written. It's just that it wasn't a good mecher. But he was admitting that the money was taken from the mill and given to himself. So therefore, you should be able to be goiva menechos mishubadim over here also. That's what Abai wants to say. That's the Rebbe Asi. The goiva menechos mishubadim. Amalei, Rava disagreed with Abai. No, you want to claim that he should be able to use the shtar. Rava wants to say that no. In case of our case with the milv and the lova, he should not be able to use the shtar to be tired from the kuchos. Amalei Rava. Midami, it's not even comparable. You can't compare our case of the karka with the case of a regular shtar halva. Midami, hasam niten likosab, likosab, lo niten likosab. In the case of a normal shtar that they're trying to verify whether it can be used or not, and the loiva admits it was written, so we do believe him and give strength to the shtar. We don't have to verify the edim anymore. Why? Because there was nothing wrong with having written that shtar. They were allowed to write that shtar. Either the shtar is lost or they're just verifying the signatures, but there was nothing wrong in writing the shtar in the first place. So he's just admitting that it was written. But in our case with the karka, you couldn't write that shtar. There was something wrong in writing it in the first place. You weren't allowed to write it because it wasn't even his to sell. You couldn't write that shtar mecher. That's what Rava says. You weren't even allowed to write it. So therefore, there's a tzad to say there, because of that it won't have the taikif. Just because the loiva admitted it was written, doesn't mean that it will give it strength to be goiva min nechasim mishubadim. And therefore, Rabbi says, no, you should not be able to be goiva from land that the loiva would set after the date on that shtar. Yosef Mreimar, he was sitting, but he said over what Rava said, Komar lahashmaisa Omar le Ravina to Mreimar. Ela, problem is with what Rava said, that he said that in any shtar that you shouldn't have written, well, it doesn't matter, even if the loiva admits it was written, won't have any taikif. You won't be able to be government in chas mishubadim. That's what Rava was saying. So he says to L'Mreima, Elahado Amar Rebbe Yochanan Gezeira Shema Yigba Mizman Rishon. We said before in the machlokas, we had a machlokas Rebbe Shimon Lachish and Rebbe Yochanan, that in a shtar which was mukdam, that it was puzzled completely. So the reason was, according to Rebbe Meir, is because that we knas the other heta out to the yisur. But according to Rebbe Yochanan, it was a gzeira. We don't want the shtar sitting around. The person might use it for the earlier time period, so we puzzle it for the later time period also. According to this, Rebbe Yochanan could have answered, if that was a true din, which Rava mentioned, he could have said, it wasn't right to write this shtar in the first place, so it's completely puzzle, because you can't write a predated shtar. And he didn't answer that. He said it was a gzeira. We don't want it sitting around because someone might use the earlier date. Go according to the earlier date. So Ravina wants to prove that the din of what Rava said is not, we don't learn like that. And that just because the shtar wasn't supposed to be written doesn't take away its koach. And therefore, maybe that malva can really collect from the lukuchos, from the mishubodim that were land that was sold by the loiva after the date on that shtar. That's what he says in the Gemara. Nema lo nitain. Rebbe Yochanan should have said lo nitain likosab. You weren't able to write that shtar. That's why the shtar mukdam should have been pasuk on Rebbe Yochanan. So Mereimar answered back to Ravina, no, Rava's din was correct. If a shtar wasn't supposed to be written, it does lose all of its koyach. Omele Hachi Hashta Hosam. In the case of the Milva Mukdam, the Shtar Mukdam, Dulo Nitain Li Kosav Mizman Rishon, Aval Nitain Li Kosav Mizman Sheni. So that's why in the case of the Shtar Mukdam, he couldn't have used the svara, that it wasn't possible he shouldn't have written it in the first place, because that Shtar Mukdam wasn't completely unwritable. You could have written it from the right time. If you had, from the right date, it would have been writable. It wouldn't have been any problem writing that Shtar. The only problem was writing it from the earlier date. But with the Shtar of the Mecher, in the case of the Karka, that should never have been written in the first place, because it wasn't even the loivas to sell. Therefore, Meremar wants to say Rav's din is correct, and that something which wasn't supposed to be written does take a koyach of the Shtar to be go from nechasim mishubadim, and then for the malva should not be able to be go from those nechasim that the logo would sell after the date on that Shtar. Elaha, the Tanya we learn in the Raisa l'shvach karka ois ketzad. There's a din that by shvach karka ois, person who had bought a lokech that bought a field, let's say field from a moicher, and if it gets, he's bi'achrayus, and he gets taken away from him by previous bali choyvos of the moicher, so he can go back to the moicher and get his and collect from. He's allowed that lokech can any person that that moicher sold his land to after the date of the Shtar of the lokeach, that lokeach can go and take it away, that land that the moicher sold after the date of their Shtar. But if he improved the land, meaning he seeded it or he fertilized it or he built fences around it, that's called shvach. That he can't collect from nechasim mishubadim that the moicher sold to other people. He can only get that payback by b'nei chayrin. So the more wants to understand what shvach karkos. Kate said, what do we mean by shvach karkos? Collecting it. Hari shegozal sode mechaver. A person stole a field from another person and sold it v'machra la'acher to another person, and they wrote a Shtar on it. And he improved the land. Now, then he got it taken away from him by the original owner. V'hari he yoitza metachas yodo, and it was taken away from him. So now he goes back to the moicher, the gazlan, and wants to get his money back. So kishu goiva min hakeren, that he's allowed. Go back, and any lands that gazlan sold after the date of his Shtar of the lokeach, he can just take that back and retain his keren, get his keren back. However, what about the shvach? The shvach he can only collect that from existing lands that the gazlan has. He can collect his shvach from that. So on that we see here there was a Shtar written between them.
From the mechira. The gazlan sold the karka with the Shtar.
He sold the cargo with a Shtar, and then for the keren, the lokech was able to take that Shtar and be tighter from the kuchos that the gazlan had sold land to, and the gazlan had no right to sell that land in the first place because he stole the land. So we see that the din which Rava mentioned before isn't applying over here, because you see that the Shtar still has taikif to be goiva from the lekuchos. So name lo nitain li kosav. Maybe we should say that the Shtar should have no strength because he shouldn't have been written in the first place. More answers: no, that's not going to be a raya against Rava's din. Hocha hashta, that case hosam over there. Lemanda omer. There was two different manda omer over there. Was saying why the gazlan has a motivation to write that Shtar in the first place. One, and why it could be considered a good Shtar. One said, "Ilamanda Oma Nichele Dulo Nikraya Gazlono, Ilamanda Oma Nichele de Mekom Behem Nusa." So there's two mandar. Some say that the Gazlan, when he will write a Shtar, it can be acceptable because we can assume that he wants, first of all, he doesn't want to be considered a Gazlan in the eyes of the lokeach, and he wants to have some ne'amonos in general. And so writing a star isn't completely useless, even though he's selling somebody else's field, because he might want, since he wants to appear good and to maybe make himself good, he'll go back to the original owner and he'll work it out and even pay from his own pocket maybe for the land in order that the lokech can keep the land and won't call him a goslin. So then there's like reason to have the star that the goslin might even want the star. However, so then tofis le limari.
If he buy the karka from the nigzal, why should now the buyer have to give back the karka? Maybe the nigzal want to have it back. The Gemara says that the star could be a real star, because normally the gazlan is possibly going to the nigzal and he's paying him for the karka that he stole from him. Yes.
Right.
So if he paid of him, why the buyer has to give back the karka?
Why would he?
What is the case? What is the case? Yeah. What is the case
here?
Here, the nigzal is coming to the buyer and saying, "Hello, give me back my karka.
Why would he?
This is my karka." So if the nigzal is taking back
he would
karka,
take back the karka.
so the buyer is coming to the seller and selling to tell me the karka. I have to give back the karka. Pay me back my money.
Right. So
and pay me the shvach.
So in Beis Din, is the original owner comes to Beis Din and says, "Give me my land back with a shtar turfa."
Yeah.
So at that point, maybe the goslin will then wants to appear good and doesn't want the lokech to call him a goslin. So he will then at that moment pay the original owner, and then the land will stay by lokech. So then there was a reason to have the shtar, and therefore the shtar can stay. I hear what you're saying. They're saying that then you won't need, then you wouldn't need to.
The karka can stay by the buyer.
Right. And you wouldn't need, right? Could sell then the buyer wouldn't have to.
So what is the case? So why does the lekech now have to give back?
Rashi says where we are in the Gemara down about 5 lines. Tofis le lemara, loik chamin abaylim, harishonim. Well, in other words, he will try to take it from the first bailim and pay them. Right.
Maybe the Gemara is saying because sometimes, not always, the standard. He has the possibility when he sold him with the star. When he sold him with the star, is maybe there was a possibility that he went to the nigzal and he's paying him. So the star became a real star.
Right.
But it was not the case, I think. So at the moment that they wrote the star, it was possible that the star could be a real star.
Right.
I think so, because otherwise,
if you really paid,
if you really paid to the nigzal, so what's the problem here? Because Rashi is saying, right. The nigzal is going to the lekech and say, "Tell me, this karka that you bought from your friend, right. It's my karka. Right. Give me back the karka."
So I think you're right.
So he has to give back the karka, and the lekech is going to the moicha and say, "Told me, I paid you money for a karka that was." He's
able to be tyref based on that star because the star was a real star because of the possibility that the
possibility. It's not all. It's not here the case, because if you hear the case that he paid them, so what's the problem? Why is the nixel is coming?
Very good.
I think so.
So.
Sometimes, if people is selling a karka gezila, sometimes he's looking after the balam rishonim. Is this not the people who are selling the karka and gezila? Is sometimes they're going to looking for the balam rishonim and they want to pay them.
Right. Sometimes they would want to pay them, so it could be a good star, and therefore. So tofis le lemare, v'mukim le shtari. So therefore, it's considered that it was at the time of the writing of the star that it was considered a real star because of that, because it was. So however, There we say that there we see that he didn't have the right to be selling somebody else's field, and yet we weren't saying that we saw there was strength in the shtar. However, in our case of the karka with the malv and the loiv and the sun, so since he's specifically just selling, he was the shtar that was written.
From in the beginning was a false thing. The whole story was false.
The shtar that was written was, and he was just trying to get the malva away, and the shtar that was written completely bar korcha. He was against his will, and so there is no. So the shtara mekayim lay, he's not going to want to mekayim that shtar anywhere, and so therefore that's a shtar that was completely right. Shlonit l'kosa, meaning that it was. The
Gemara is saying that we have two cases
and
of
therefore
ashtar.
It's
We have two cases of ashtar. There is a case of ashtar that is completely false and not inclusive because the karka he gives for the son is not inclusive. And here with the karka exila, it's not 100% a false star because it could be that he is selling him the karka with the star and he is paying for the nixel. So the star is a good star. So not always it be 100%.
Right.
It was 100% false from in the beginning.
Right. This was 100% false because it was owned by somebody else. There's no way that it could be good. Zokta Elika Mishnah, Ein Paiskin ala Aperus. Person cannot go up to a person and with money and say, give me Perus over the term of a year based on this money. You can't Ein Paiskin ala Perus ad shiyot shah until the shah of how much those Perus is worth has come out, and then he'll know how much has to be paid to the buyer over the course of the year. But if it hasn't gone out, so then all they do is give money and say, give me a saw of wheat over the course of the year, and we don't know how much a saw of wheat is at that time worth. So then it might end up being ribis because he might end up giving him a saw which is worth more than the money that he gave him. So Yotza Shar Pois can we say that if it came out the Shar, then he can fix that type of a deal. The reason is because when the buyer will give money, even if the seller doesn't have the commodity at that time, we don't care. It's considered as though he does have the commodity, and if he does have the commodity, at that moment when they make the transaction, the buyer is considered, it transfers over to the buyer.
Even though it doesn't exist yet?
Now, even if it's not in the reshus of the seller, it's still okay, because if he had the produce, it's fine because it's, at that moment when they make the transaction, it's considered it goes over to the buyer at that moment. But even if he doesn't have it in his reshus, but they have the shar went out and they know how much that commodity is worth at that moment, and the buyer is giving him money.
Who does have the produce at that point?
No, everybody, whoever's selling it, but the one selling it here doesn't have it at that moment. So then it would be good because the seller, could take that money and buy that amount of produce from anybody. So it's considered though he has it, and therefore it's considered as already transfers over to the buyer, and then no matter what he returns back, whatever the fluctuation of how much that commodity is worth later, doesn't matter, it won't be ribis because it was considered that it went up in the reshus of the buyer. Then the Mishnah says, Haya hu techila lekaitzrim. Let's say there was paisik imo ala godish. Let's say there was a person who harvested his field earlier than everybody else before the shah of the shuk came out, and it's piled up, but there's not gemar malacha. There's still more process to do with this produce, but he wants to deal with it. He wants to sell it to a person. So you're allowed to say that I'll give you money. You give me this godish later, that amount, because it's there. He can give me even more money than it's really worth because it's there. It's just like the buyer is buying that godish at that moment. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to charge more than something is worth as long as it's right there. And it's not considered ogar notar. It's not considered payment for the weight for having one's money sitting by the other person for time. So a person here, from here, he cut his stalks before the shar of the shuk came out. imo al hagodish the ala avit shel anovim. Here, this is a big vat where they throw all the grapes in order for them to get soft before they start the dricha, stomping on them, and that's an early stage in the process. But you can still sell them because they're there, and therefore that would work also. The al hamotan shel zaitim, the same thing as a vat for the zaitim. Ba'al habeitzim shel oitzer. This is metal, chunks of metal that a person, he makes kederos, he makes pots. He takes raw chunks of metal. Those are called the beitzim. And they're early in the process, but they're there. So the person could buy them, give money for those, even though they might fluctuate later when he's going to, when that person, the seller will supply the buyer with them. Ba'al chosid, that they would take blocks of lime and they used to put them in big vats and smash them with wood to get them broken down a little bit, and then they would put them in a big oven and make them get dry and become more particle. But this is the early stage, so you can also buy that. You can be placed, you can agree on buying that whole amount for a certain amount of money over the period of time. The Poisek Imo al Hazevel Kol Imo Sashana. Here, Zevel hasn't come into the world yet. He's saying, I'll buy a certain amount of Zevel manure for this amount of money, and it's not going to this, the Chachamim here, it's not even there yet. So it'll come later, that's still okay. Rabbi Yossi Omer, no, it's not okay. It has to be there, it has to be in his Omer Rabbi Yossi. La'ilam ain poiskin, you can't be poiskin manure al hazevel ela im kain haisalo zevel ba'ashba. He has to have his big container full of it in order to be poiskin with the zevel, because it has to be there. But Chachamim matirin, Chachamim say, like we said before, you can, even if it's not there, more we'll probably talk about that later, why that's an exception, that you're allowed even if it's not really there. The Poisik imo bishar hagvoa. So shar gavoa means really the shar hanamuch, really the low shar, meaning the shar gavoa means when it gets cheap to buy this commodity with a low price for the commodity, that's called the shar gavoa. When you can buy a lot with a little, that's called shar gavoa. So you can poisik with a person and say that you want that whatever you're buying, here's the money, give me that produce only at the lower rate throughout the year. Rashi says, we're up 2 lines from the wide lines. The posuk imo b'shar hagavoa im yifchos hashar. If the shar will go down, from now when they're making the deal, titain li. That's when I want that kisha hazol. Give me that share. That's what I want. I want it so at that time. Kisha hazol shah gavoa. That's the shah gavoa. What do we mean shah gavoa? Ayu bezol shenoistin perus arbe b'damim muatim. They can buy a lot of perus for a little bit of money, and he's allowed to say, "Give me." When it hits a low point, he can say, "I want all my produce at that rate." So Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Afa Pi Shelo Posak Imo. Even if they never spoke about it in the beginning, in the middle of the year, Bishar Gavo, they never spoke about Bishar Gavo. He can come up to him in the middle of the year. Yochel Omer Tainli Kizeh. Give me at this rate right now for the money that I gave you. I want all my produce. Or give me my money back. Or give me my money back. He's allowed to do that right there.
The rate right now.
He sees it's a low rate. He sees the low rate. He sees it's a low rate. He gave money in the beginning of the iska, and then like a few months later, he sees it hit a very good low, and he says, "I want all my produce at this rate, so I'm going to get a lot of produce."
He's only guessing it's low. It could go lower.
All right.
Right? He doesn't know. He's just guessing. Correct?
Right. Whatever rate that he sees is good for him, he can ask for it then at that amount. Rashi says, for the end of the first wide line, Tainli kizeo or Tainli moisai. Give me this or give me my money back. Shahari lo moshach. He never did a mashicha that it's really his, that he's obligated. He never did a mashicha. Yochol lachzor, or he can go back on it because he never did a mashicha. The filu mishapor leka. There won't be a curse of a mishapor for someone who gave money but didn't do the mashicha. Since he didn't give the money, he didn't give his money originally to get all of his produce at one shot. The way a mishapor is usually for someone who gave money and expects to buy the object at that moment. He didn't expect to buy the produce at that moment when he gave the money. He expected to get it distributed to him over the course of the year. So since he bought it in that way, so therefore, he was going to get it later. And in that time period, he saw that the shar went down. So stam daite, the stam person, when he goes into a deal, he wants to get a good rate. Daite, the inish, atora zoyle posik, on a good rate. Or a good shar he's intending to get. So therefore, he has the right to demand a good shar, since that's what he went into the iska for in the first place, and he wasn't, and he won't have a mishapur either. Sagt the Gemara, Omar Rav Asi, Omar Rabbi Yochanan. Ein poiskin ala shar b'shuk. So we just saw in the Mishnah that you can, once the shar of the shuk went out, you can be poiskin on Perus. It's not a problem. Rabbi Yochanan, saying in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that if the shar shebashuk went out, you can't be poiskin to make a deal, give money and fix how much fruit Perus he's going to get over the course of time. So Omar le Rabbi Zera le Rabbi Asi, Omar Rabbi Yochanan afilu be kidurmus hazeh. So I think he was asking, either he's stating that Rabbi Yochanan held this way, or he was suggesting that maybe Rabbi Yochanan, when he said you can't be poskin even when the shar of the shuk went out, so he was suggesting that Rabbi Yochanan would even hold like this, that even on a big block of meat, a big side of meat, that the shar doesn't change so much. On certain things, the shar doesn't fluctuate. Certain things it fluctuates a lot. So even on something like this, that the shar won't fluctuate, would he still say that if the shar of a big side of meat would come out, that he can't be poiskin for over the long term? So Omar Le, as he told him, Omar Le, lo, no, he didn't mean that. If a shar which was generally fixed over a long period of time would come out, that he would agree that you could be poiskin on a shar like that. Lo, Omar Rabbi Yochanan, lo Omar Rabbi Yochanan ela b'shuk shel ayaros, the lo keviyeh Tairayu. Then when Rabbi Yochanan said you cannot be poiskin when the shar of the shuk comes on the shar of the shuk, he meant the shar of the shuk that comes out of cities, which are not so huge, of cities, ayaros, that are not really big, and in those cities the prices fluctuate a lot, and therefore the problem is if you'll give money to this person to supply you over the year with a certain commodity, by the time he gets around to buying it, the price might have fluctuated, and he'll buy it at a higher rate than what you fixed what it was when you were buying it, because the price doesn't stay stable. And so then when he has to return to you, he'll have to pay more to get enough to pay you back. So you can't do that type of a deal to give money and fix how much produce he's supposed to return to you at the end of a certain time period. He is mechuyev to return that amount of produce for that amount of money, and the price might become more expensive. That commodity might become more expensive. He'll have to take from his own pocket money to return to you what he's mechuyev to return to you. So you can't do that. But ulamai is salik. So what happened? Rabbi Zera said he had a havamina that Rabbi Yochanan also meant that even a rate for like a side of meat, which would generally be stable, he would also hold you can't. The rate for that came out that you couldn't also be poiskin. Why did Rabbi Zera have a havamina that Rabbi Yochanan would think such a thing? So miyakora, lemai the salak adaitin of Rabbi Zera miyakora, to suggest that Rabbi Yochanan would say that even if a fixed rate for something would come out, it couldn't be poskin. To Omar Rabbi Yochanan, afilu b'kudemus hazeh ela. So how does he understand our Mishnah that says if the shar comes out, you can be poskin? How would he understand our Mishnah? Ela masnisin dekatoni ein poskin ala peros ad sheyotza ashar yotza ashar poiskin heichi mashkachos lo. According to Rabbi Yochanan, we wouldn't even have any case where that could work, where that would work, because he just would have eliminated all the different sharim that could be had, the stable ones and the unstable ones. And for the Gemara, according to the Havamina, Rabbi Zera would be that Rabbi Yochanan would have held that Masnisim, he would have said that, our Mishnah is talking about Chite to Achleve Ba'arve. That our Mishnah is talking about that when the price comes out, the shar of the Chite the Achleve Ba'arve comes out, that's when you could be Poiskin. That means that, as Rashi says, when people have storehouses of their wheat, when they open their storehouses to take their wheat out to the shuk, that's a sign that it's time for the wheat market, and that's going to be a stable price. And also when the boats float in with their big supplies to start selling it in that area, that's going to be a time when the rate for wheat is going to be somewhat stable. So that's what he might have meant. Rabbi Zera said that's what the Rabbi Yochanan would have understood our Mishnah. And he explains the Moshuch Tarayu Tefei, that it has a longer stability for those rates. Once that time comes in, when everyone's opening up their oats rice and the boats are coming in, it's probably going to be a fixed price for those commodities, and that's what Rabbi Yochanan would have understood our Mishnah according to Rabbi Zera. Tana Rabbanim, Ein Paiskin ala Peiros. That we have a brisa that sounds similar to our Mishnah. You're not supposed to be Paiskin ala Peiros, give money and stipulate how much he's supposed to give you back at the end of a certain term. Ad sheyotza shar, until the shar for those Peiros comes out, and then it'll be fine. It'll be as though the buyer already got that Peiros, and there won't be any problem with Ribis. So yotza shar Paiskin, but if the shar comes out, you can be Paiskin, you can make this deal. Afal pi she'ein lezeh yesh lezeh. That works because even if the person that you're buying it from doesn't have the commodity, once he has the money in his hand, he could buy it from whatever amount of produce that money would buy, and it'll be kilu he does have it, and therefore at that moment it does go over to the buyer. Hayu chadashos, and it continues and says that if there was wheat which was freshly harvested, so it's called chadashos, me'arba, meaning it's cheap because it's can't be ground, it's not dried out. So you'd get like arba kor for a seller, whereas the yeshanos b'shlosh, yeshanos would be like 3 kor for a seller, which is more expensive, 25% more expensive. So if you have these two different types of wheat with different rates, so ein paiskin ad sheyotza shar lechodesh uliyashin. You have to wait till the chodesh dries out a little bit and the amount for it will be equal to the yeshanos, and then you can be paiskin on it. Because if you would be paiskin on the chadashos, over the period of the year, it's going to dry out, and that itself will go up in price. And in order for him to return to you the wheat at that rate, he's going to have to pay more because everything will be yeshanos at that time. It'll be more expensive. So you have to wait till everything settles and down to the same shop. Hayu lekutos. Lekutos are people that they were the wholesalers of wheat, and people would bring them, farmers or people that gather wheat, like poor people that would go around the fields and gather the strain stalks. They would bring them back to the wholesale and get money for them, and then the wholesale would collect all of these gatherings. So that's cheaper because it's mixed with subin and chita and has all different things mixed with it. So it sells for arba, me'arba, for like arba kor lesela. So the kol adam, a regular farmer, mishlosh. So his produce is cleaner. It's not mixed with all different types of produce. So his goes for, doesn't have to be sifted out and strained out. So his goes for mishlosh. So therefore you shouldn't paiskin with it when you're making a deal on the kutos. So paiskin ad shiyotza shar lekut ulemoiche. For both types of people, when will it come out the shar for the lakut? After a while, when they sort the different grains separate from each other and they're not all mixed, then the price of each one will go up and be equal to the price of a bag of wheat. So that's what you have to wait for in order to be paiskin on lekutos. So Omer Rav Nachman, paiskin lekutos kishar lekutos. So Rav Nachman allows you that if you're going to make a deal, here, I'm giving you money, I want you to give me lekutos, meaning the mixed bags, and I want you, it's the shar of how much lekutos are going for, and give me back lekutos. So he says it's okay because you're being paiskin to get the low, poor quality, and that's what you're going to get back also. So Amalei Rava l'Rav Nachman. So we see here what happens. He doesn't have all the grain at the time when they make up the deal. They agree and they look at the shah, and over the year he gives them lakutos. So what do we say? If the seller doesn't have everything that he's supposed to give him, he can just, what does he do? He's allowed to go to the people that the gatherers, and borrow from them and give it to the buyer. So mashna lokat. What's the difference between the lokat? If he doesn't have what to give to the buyer at any moment, he can go and get it and give it to him. He can go to his friend, who's usually the aniyim, out of lakot, and take it. But the balabayas, so the balabayas should also be able to do that. Nami yozif milakut. He should also be able to go and borrow from the lakut and give it over, and therefore a person should be able to be poskin with the kutos, even with a regular person, because he should be able to get it also. So Omulei, no, Balabais won't want to do that. He won't want to deal with the poor people that are coming, gathering from the fields. He's a regular farmer. Omulei Balabais, Zila Bay Milsa. He wouldn't want to do that. So therefore, you shouldn't start up with him you shouldn't be poskin, negotiate with him to get that, because he won't, if something happens and he doesn't have any to give you, he won't want to go to the lakut to get it. But Milsa, Zila Bay Milsa Lemizaf Milakit. It's embarrassing for him to go to the locket and gather. Boys, another reason why we don't let him deal in lakutos, a regular farmer to deal in lakutos. Ema man, because if a person came up to a regular farmer, he wants regular produce and doesn't want mixed produce, inferior produce. Ema man diyoyiv zuze lebal abayis a perish shapira yav. He wants good stuff, good produce. Omer Rav Sheshis, Omer Rav Huna. Ein lavin al shar shabashuk. We said before, ein poskin al shar shabashuk above. Rabbi Yochanan said, you can't be poskin al shar shabashuk. Rabbi Huna says, ein lavin al shar shabashuk. You can't give a loan to somebody and say, pay me back in produce at this rate that I'm giving you the loan. How much produce this money can buy? Give it back to me at a certain date. You can't do that. Omar le Rav Yosef Bar Chama, the Rav Sheshis. The Omer Lo Rav Yosef Bar Abba Le Rav Sheshis. The me Omer Rav Huna Haki. Did Rav Huna say such a thing that you can't make a deal to get paid back in produce if you fix the rate? Haki. Vaha boy mi name Rav Huna. They asked him, Hani b'nei bei Rav d'zayfe b'tishrei v'pori b'teves. They used to buy like wine, and they borrowed the wine in Tishrei, and then they would, where the wine was cheap, and they would pay back in Teves at the higher rate, because they didn't have money to get their wine then in Tishrei. They didn't have any money. So they're taking the wine as a loan all the way until Teves. Teves, they'll pay it back at and that was mutter. So he asked them, is it mutter for them to take a commodity at a certain rate of a loan and give back that commodity later? So Sharia Aser. So Omar Lahu, Hai Chite Behine Vahai Chite Beshile. So in other words, before he said he can't do it. You can't fix a commodity in order to pay back in that commodity. But here he's saying yes, they can do it. Because Hai Chite Behine Vahai Chite Beshile. If he, on wheat, for example, if he's buying, because he's going to get paid back in wheat, money, he's borrowing money, and he's supposed to be paid back in commodity. At that moment, when he's getting the money for the loan, he can buy the wheat anywhere at that price. So now later, when he has to return the money, he could have bought, because he had the money in his hand, he could have bought the wheat at that cheaper price. So then it would have been considered that he had that commodity in his reshus at the time when the Malva gave him the loan, and it was therefore have been like the Malva was kind of it, and if it went up in price, it went up in price in the reshus of the Malva. So therefore, he changed his mind. He's learning differently. Iboy zavne v'porei le mikor. That's what we just said. He could have bought it originally and at that price and had it in his possession. Sova Rav Huna Ein Lovin. We thought originally, like we said, that he cannot do this. Kevin de Shoma Lo de Amar Rabbi Shmuel Bar Chia Amar Rabbi Laza. Then he heard Rabbi Shmuel Bar Chia Amar Rabbi Laza say that you can Lovin. So Amar Ihu Nami Lovin. Then he changed his din. He passed also that it's mutter to do such a thing. And we'll stop here.
Correct.